Welcome everyone. Today we are going to discuss about the large intestine. Large intestine consists of different parts. It starts with the cecum, runs up as a ascending colon, continues as transverse colon, then descending colon, then an S-shaped sigmoid colon, then that ends into the rectum, and finally the anal canal. So these are the different parts of the large intestine. In the very beginning, that is at the level of the cecum, we can see another structure called the vermiform appendix, which is a worm-like structure. So while seeing this length of the large intestine, it is 1.5 meter. 6 to 6.5 meter is the length of the small intestine, but large intestine is just 1.5 meters. It extends from ileocecal junction to the anal canal. Ileocecal junction is, this is the cecum, this is the ileum. Because the small intestine, the duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Ileum has to finally joins with the cecum. So this is the ileocecal junction. From there it starts and it ends at the anal canal. The different parts of the large intestine measures like 15 centimeter for the ascending colon, transverse colon has 50 centimeter, descending has 25 centimeters, and sigmoid has 40 centimeters. So the transverse colon is the elongated part of the large intestine. Rectum is just 12 centimeter and anal canal is 3.8 centimeters. We'll see the difference between small intestine and large intestine. The criteria which is making the difference are the length, lumen, mobility, then transverse mucous folds, villi, Peyer's patches, appendices, epiploiceae, tinea coli, and sacculation. We'll see the different features which is present, which is peculiar to the large intestine are the presence of sacculation. Sacculation means the sac-like pouches. Here you can see it is not a straight tube, it is forming a sac-like structure. So this appearance of the large intestine is called sacculation. Then tinea coli. Tinea coli means elongated worm-like or tapeworm-like elongated muscle which is present along the large intestine is called tinea coli. Then appendices epiploiceae means appendices epiploiceae are small peritoneal bags which is filled with fat. You can see some appendices epiploiceae which is hanging from here in this region. It is present here also. These are small peritoneal bags which is filled with the it is filled with the fat, that is called appendices epiploiceae. So these are the three important characteristic features of the large intestine which is not present in any other parts of the gastrointestinal tract. So here you can see this transverse colon with the tinea coli along with this. This is a tinea coli along with this. Then you can see these are the peritoneal folds associated with the large intestine. We'll see one by one. Length, while considering the small intestine, the length is 6 meter, but large intestine is 1.5 meter. Lumen, small intestine is having a narrow lumen. Lumen means the cavity. The cavity of the small intestine is small, but that of the large intestine is wider. Mobility is due to the presence of peritoneum. The organ with the more peritoneum will move more, but the organ with less peritoneum will be moving less. So here in small intestine, mesentery is the peritoneum, but in case of large intestine, peritoneum is attached only at the area of transverse colon, sigmoid colon and the appendix, and the remaining areas are retroperitoneal, so which is more movable. The small intestine will be more movable. So mobility is more in small intestine, because in the small intestine, we know it is having three different parts. Then this duodenum, jejunum, ileum. In which duodenum doesn't have any peritoneal fold, but in case of jejunum and ileum, they are having mesentery. So most part of the, when comparing the large intestine, most part of the intestine will be having peritoneum, while taking the small intestine. But in large intestine, only three areas are having peritoneum. So which is more movable. Mobility is more in case of small intestine. Now, transverse mucosal folds. Transverse mucosal folds are permanent in case of small intestine. That means it does not obliterated by the distension of the gut. When the gut is enlarged, when the small intestine is enlarged, when the food material is passing down, the mucosal fold does not change. But in large intestine, when the gut is enlarged, when this intestine is enlarged, the presence of food material, what happened to the transverse mucosal folds? That also unfolded. So they are temporary. In now, in case of villi, villi means finger-like processor. Villi is more needed in small intestine because villi is helping for the absorption. Here, villi are present in small intestine, which is absent in the large intestine. Now, Peyer's patches. In Peyer's patches are nothing but the lymphatic collection, the lymphatic follicles, the collection of lymphatic follicles, which is present in the ileum of the small intestine, which is not present anywhere in the gut. Appendices epiploiceae. As I have already discussed, appendices epiploiceae are small peritoneal bags which is filled with the fat and which is hanging from the large intestine. And this feature is present only in the large intestine, which is absent in the small. Tinea coli. Tinea coli is the tapeworm-like elongated longitudinal muscle cord present in the large intestine. This is a characteristic feature of the large intestine, not present in the small intestine. Then the sacculation. Sacculations means a sac-like formation of the large intestine. In the picture, as we have seen in the picture, here you can see these sacculations, which is not present in the small intestine. So these are the differences between large and small intestine. Then we will see the first part, the cecum, which is a large blind sac forming the commencement of the large intestine. This is the beginning of the large intestine. This is situated in the right iliac fossa. It communicates superiorly with the ascending colon and medially with the appendix. Then the cecum continues with the ascending colon, but medially it is connected with the appendix. Two structures are opening into the cecum. One is appendix, other is ileum. We will see the different types of cecum. Types of the cecum is depending upon the position of the appendix attached to it. Appendix can be presented, or it can be presented in the cecum at a different areas or at a different position. So depending upon the position of the appendix which is attached to the cecum, we can divide the cecum into different types. First one is conical type. Can be present in 2% of people. They are fetal type, and the cecum is conical and appendix is attached to its apex. This is a picture of the conical cecum. Conical means cecum, the end of the cecum will be conical in shape. To the apex of the cecum, vermiform appendix is attached. So this kind of cecum is present in 2% of people. Next is infantile type, present in 3% of people. The cecum is quadrate in shape and appendix is attached to the depressed bottom. The second one, infantile type. See, cecum is quadrate in shape. In the middle of the cecum, appendix is attached. This is infantile type. Next is normal type. Normal type is present in 90% of people. 80 to 90% of people are having normal type, in which right saccule is larger than the left, and appendix is attached to the posteromedial aspect about 2 cm below the ileocecal junction. Means this is the cecum. The cecum has a right lobe and a left pouch. A right pouch which is larger and a left pouch which is smaller. In between the right and left pouches, the appendix is present, which is arising from the posteromedial aspect of the cecum. Posteromedial means posterior surface, but medially aspect of the cecum. That is a normal attachment of the vermiform appendix. That is why it is presented in 80 to 90% of people. And finally, the last one is the exaggerated type, in which you can see only the right pouch, right cecal pouch, which is mostly enlarged, and the left cecal pouch is absent. So the right cecal pouch, at the end of the right cecal pouch, the appendix is present. So this is about the different types of cecum. If you see the relation of the cecum, cecum is present in the right iliac fossa. Iliac fossa means this is one of the 9 regions of the abdomen. Umbilical region, epigastric, hypogastric, then hypochondric, lumbar, and iliac fossa. Cecum is present in the right iliac fossa. So the visceral relation is anterior to the cecum, coils of the small intestine is present, greater omentum is present. Greater omentum is nothing but the peritoneal fold of the stomach, which is extending throughout the abdominal cavity like an apron. Then anterior abdominal wall. These are the anterior visceral relations. Coils of the small intestine, greater omentum, and anterior abdominal wall. Posteriorly, the right psoas major muscle and iliacus muscle. Then on the or the junction between iliacus and psoas major, femoral nerve is present. So femoral nerve, then right gonadal vessels. If it is male, you can see testicular. If in females, you can see ovarian vessels. So right side gonadal vessels are present posterior to the cecum. So there is an anterior and posterior relation. Anteriorly, coils of the small intestine, greater omentum, and anterior abdominal wall. Posteriorly, the psoas major muscle, femoral nerve, and right gonadal vessels. Here you can see the psoas major and iliacus. This is psoas major, this is iliacus muscle. In between, there is femoral nerve. It's coming posteriorly. Then this is right gonadal vessels. The posterior relation is given there. Then if you look at the interior of the cecum presents 2 orifices. 2 orifices means opening. One is for the ileum, other is for the appendix. So ileocecal orifice is present on the posteromedial aspect of the cecocolic junction. Cecocolic junction means the junction between cecum and ascending colon. So at the junction between cecum and ascending colon, posteromedially we can see the attachment of the appendix. Attachment of the ileum. Then appendicular orifice. It is a smaller circular orifice situated 2 cm below the ileum. It is always present below the ileum. The orifice is guarded by a valve which is called valve of Gerlach. Valve of Gerlach is a valve of the appendix. Regarding the blood supply and lymphatic drainage, cecum is supplied by the anterior and posterior cecal branches of the ileocolic artery. Lymph is drained from by the ileocecal lymph node. Ileocolic lymph nodes. Ileocolic artery, ileocolic vein, ileocolic lymph nodes. Nerve supply is nothing but the sympathetic and parasympathetic, because all the visceral organs are supplied by the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now we can move to the vermiform appendix. It's a short note. Vermiform appendix is a worm-like structure which is present posteromedial to the cecum normally. It is a narrow worm-like diverticulum arising from the posteromedial wall of the cecum 2 cm below the ileocecal junction. The appendix varies in length from 2 to 20 cm. That means in some people it may be 2 cm, in some other people may be 20 cm. But on an average it comes around 9 centimeters or 5 centimeter, or sometimes the average width is 5 millimeter, but length is 9 centimeter, average length. Diameter of lumen varies with age. It is more in children than in adults and often obliterated after middle life. That is why the infection in the vermiform appendix is more prone in children. Why? Because the cavity or the lumen which is present inside the vermiform appendix is larger when compared to an adult. In adult life, after middle age, the cavity of the vermiform appendix got obliterated and nothing is infiltrated inside the appendix. So the infection of the appendix or the appendicitis is common in children when compared to adults. Length of the appendix is also varies with age. It is longer in children than in adults. While seeing the parts of the appendix, it consists of a base, body and tip. Base is the attached portion. This is a body. Tip is the lower end, lower free end. This is a tip. This is a body and this is a base. The base is attached to the posteromedial wall of the cecum, about 2 cm below the ileocecal junction. Body is narrow and it is tubular between base and the tip. Tip is the least vascular distal blind end. It may be directed in various directions. Tip is free. The tip is not attached anywhere. Base is only attached. Tip is not attached anywhere. So it can be directed to any direction, any area, any anteriorly, posteriorly, laterally, medially, any direction it can be presented. So depending upon the position of the tip of the appendix, there are different types of appendix. It usually lies in the right iliac fossa. You can see the appendix in various directions, like it can be presented medially, sometimes above the ilium, sometimes behind the ilium. Then these are the, if you are considering this as a clock, you can see the appendix can be present in 12 o'clock position, 2 o'clock position, 3 o'clock position, 4 o'clock position, 6 o'clock position, 11 o'clock position. So at different positions, the tip of the appendix can be present. 11 o'clock position. The appendix passes upwards on the right side of ascending colon. It is present in 2% of cases. This is the 11 o'clock position. It is present in 2% of cases. Retrocecal. Retrocecal is present in 65% of people, but that is a 12 o'clock position. The appendix passes upwards behind the cecum and present there. It's a commonest position. Then splenic position. Splenic position is a 2 o'clock position. Appendix passes upwards and medially, either in front of the ilium or behind the ilium. Then next is 3 o'clock position. Appendix passes horizontally towards the sacral promontory. The position is very rare. Next is 4 o'clock position. Appendix descends downwards and medially and crosses the pelvic brim to enter the true pelvis. 4 o'clock means at the level of the 4 o'clock position, the appendix has to descend down and to the medial aspect. It crosses a pelvic brim. Pelvic brim is the margin present in the hip bone. Inner margin means below the pelvic brim is the true pelvis, above the pelvic brim is the false pelvis. So it crosses a pelvic brim to enter the true pelvis. So it becomes a pelvic organ. Next, 6 o'clock position, straightly down. Appendix passes vertically down. below the cecum, and it points towards the inguinal ligament. This occurs in 2% of cases. Regarding the peritoneal relations, the vermiform appendix is an intraperitoneal structure. Intraperitoneal means it has peritoneum. The peritoneum is called mesoappendix. Arterial supply by appendicular artery, venous drainage, portal vein, lymphatic drainage, ileocholic lymph node, nerve supply, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Clinical condition, appendicitis. The inflammation of the appendix. During having this appendicitis for the initial stage, the pain of the appendicitis felt around the umbilicus. That is the first symptom. The pain is felt around the umbilicus. Then later, from the umbilicus, the pain moves to the right iliac fossa, where exactly the appendix is located. So, pain of the appendicitis is felt first over around the umbilicus, present over the umbilicus, then it transferred to the right iliac fossa. So, these are the clinical conditions of the appendicitis. And one more thing, the exact position of appendix is at the McBurney's point, McBurney apostrophe, McBurney's point. What is McBurney's point? McBurney's point is a point where the maximum tenderness of the appendicitis can be felt. So, this area can be located when we draw a line from the umbilicus till the anterior superior iliac spine. We know the umbilicus, but where is the anterior superior iliac spine? Anterior superior iliac spine, you can palpate in your hip bone. You can palpate in the hip bone anteriorly while palpating the hip bone from behind. And when we trace the hip bone in the anterolateral part, you will get a spiny projection. That is the anterior superior iliac spine. From there, if you draw a line towards the umbilicus, you can make this McBurney's point at the junction between medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3. So, McBurney's point is the point present at the junction between medial 2/3 and lateral 1/3 of a line which is extending from umbilicus to the right anterior superior iliac spine. And this is the site where the maximum tenderness of the appendicitis can be felt. That is also to be included while explaining this vermiform appendix. So with this, we can wind up today's class. Thank you.